RTHK comes under fire from the Director of Audit over its acquisition procedures for TV and radio programs. A Chinese scientist responds to questions about his work on genetically edited twin girls.
Hello and a very good evening. RTHK has come under fire from the Audit Commission over the public service broadcaster's low ratings and acquisition procedures for its TV and radio programmes. Sharon Tang reports.
Radio Television Hong Kong, commonly known as RTHK, now operates 7 radio and 5 TV channels. Featuring topics such as news and education, over 75% of these programs are in-house productions. In its latest report, the Audit Commission has raised concern over RTHK's viewership. It highlighted that the average rating for TV 3131A within a 6-month period was 0.1. That's 6,400 viewers. The service provider is urged to enrich its programs. Its acquisition procedures for TV and radio programs also sparked concerns. The audit report noted there's only one supplier for each procured program and no quotation has been sought. Back in 2015, the city's anti-graft body ICAC had already alerted the broadcaster that such practice could pose a collusion risk of circumventing the controls built in the standard government procurement procedures with a view to favouring a supplier. An RTHK spokesperson noted it has tried to comply with the regulations but found it difficult to do so in the market.
We take note of the content of the report. What the recommendation, we will carry out proactively.
The Commission also noticed RTHK has prolonged the employment of a large number of temporary workers. As at June 2017, the public service broadcaster had the highest percentage of such workers in its staff among all government departments. The Audit Commission has suggested the Director of Broadcasting should ensure these existing staff members are employed in line with government policy, and program acquisition guidelines should be formulated to improve the situation. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The Audit Commission also urged the Buildings Department to remove dangerous signboards in a timely manner, pointing out significant delays. The audit report highlights how long it often takes for the removal operations to be carried out after the Buildings Department issued removal orders. Of more than 800 signboards removed last year, half of them took more than a year to be cleared. One was removed after 14 years since the order was issued. In the past 5 years, 11 people were injured when signboards fell down. The Audit Commission urged the department to beef up enforcement and set time targets for completing the removal work.
News of the world's first genetically edited babies created an ethical storm that showed no signs of slowing. Scientists continue to challenge Shenzhen-based scientist He Jianhui on the necessity and transparency of his project, one that the Chinese researcher said made him proud. Here's the man at the center of the gene editing controversy.
This study has been submitted to a scientific journal for review. I also thank my university, although they are unaware of the study's conduct.
Yet he used some of the university's funds to alter the DNA of twin girls born in Shenzhen this month. The goal? To protect them from the virus that causes AIDS, since the girl's father is HIV positive. However noble the explanation, not everyone sold. Not even the leader of the international summit, He Jianhui, was invited to speak at.
There has been a failure of self-regulation by the scientific community because of a lack of transparency. We've only found out about it after it's happened and after the children are born. I personally don't think that it was medically necessary.
For this specific case, I feel proud actually. I feel proudest because the Mark thought he lost the hope for the life. But when the baby was born and with this protection, he sent a message: I will work hard earn money and take care of his 2 daughters and his wife.
Without revealing their identities, the scientist says he'll monitor the twins' health and, with their consent, continue such work after they turn 18. His audience at the Summit on Human Genome Editing was critical of creating gene-edited babies, yet curious on how he recruited volunteers.
It's a HIV and AIDS volunteer group. 8 couples enrolled for this study, and 1 dropped out. Criteria requires the father to be HIV positive and the mother to be HIV negative.
Then questions on whether his team was trained in taking consent.
2 rounds of different consent. The first round is a team member is supposed to it's informal. It's just informal conservation for 2 hours. The second one is a formal one. It's I personally explain. I explain from page 1 to page 20, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and they have the right to ask any questions.
As the researcher revealed a second potential pregnancy still in an early stage, he was asked if he will apply the technology to his own children.
If it's my baby may have the same situation, I would try it first.
A murder case in Shek Kip Mei this afternoon. At around 3 p.m, police received a report from a man who claimed his 40-year-old wife had committed suicide in a flat at Nam Shan Estate. Officers arrived at the scene and found the woman in a coma with knife wounds on her body. She was sent to hospital and was later certified dead. Her 57-year-old husband was arrested. Sources say the couple lived with their 2 sons.
On the mainland, an investigation is underway into an explosion outside a chemical plant in Hebei province, which left at least 22 people dead. The explosion occurred just after midnight at a loading area next to the plant operated by Hebei Shenghua Chemical Industry. Investigators suspect a truck carrying a highly flammable compound for use at a separate chemical factory exploded as it was passing the Shenhua plant.
Spain's King Felipe welcomed President Xi Jinping to Spain at the start of an official visit to the country. They shook hands before holding talks to begin their day of engagements. Queen Letizia of Spain and First Lady Peng Liyuan joined their husbands for a short photo call ahead of a welcome dinner. An official welcoming ceremony for Xi was held this morning at the Pardo Palace. Xi will also be given the keys to the city of Madrid, visit the Spanish Senate, and hold talks with Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez.
Senior White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says the Trump administration remains open to striking a trade deal with China, but he also warned that the United States is ready to hike tariffs on Chinese imports if there is no breakthrough between the 2 sides. Both President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump are due to meet on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina. The 2 countries' trade war will dominate the agenda.
There's a good possibility that a deal can be made, and that he is open to that. He is open to that. But having said that, some caveats, as always. Certain conditions have to be met with respect to fairness and reciprocity, as we've said many times. For example, issues of intellectual property theft must be solved. Forced technology transfers must be solved. Significant tariffs and non-tariff barriers must be solved. Issues of ownership have to be solved.
US President Donald Trump threatened to cut off all federal subsidies to General Motors because of its planned massive cutbacks. Trump unloaded on Twitter saying, "The US saved General Motors and this is the thanks we get." GM announced on Monday that it would be closing 5 plants and laying off up to 15,000 workers in North America. Many of the job cuts will be in the Midwest, a politically crucial region where the president promised a manufacturing rebirth. It's not clear if Trump has the authority to cut off these subsidies without congressional approval.
Meanwhile, US President Trump says he may cancel his scheduled meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Argentina later this week because of Russia's maritime clash with Ukraine. As Alan Buckner reports, there are concerns that the conflict could escalate into a full-scale war.
The 24 Ukrainian sailors detained by Russia were ordered to be held for almost 2 months in pre-trial detention by a judge in Russian-held Crimea. They were detained on Sunday when Russia seized 3 Ukrainian naval vessels off the Crimean coast. Russia and Ukraine have blamed each other for the clash in the Kerch Strait, which links the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Russia says it's a violation of its borders, while Ukraine calls it a routine passage. The detained sailors face charges of violating the border, which carries up to 6 years in prison. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko declared martial law in parts of the country most vulnerable to a Russian attack. He expressed concern that Ukraine was under threat of a full-fledged war with Russia, saying there was a buildup of Russian tanks near their shared border. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said the declaration of martial law is a provocation. He added that it could also be an excuse for Poroshenko to get rid of his opponents ahead of presidential elections. In the U.S., the State Department called on European allies to do more to help Ukraine, including tougher enforcement of sanctions against Russia.
It's a dangerous escalation on the part of Russians' continued aggressive behavior against Ukraine. The United States government has taken a very strong position in their support, of Ukraine. We would like other countries to do more as well.
U.S. President Donald Trump had been scheduled to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of a G20 summit in Argentina, which convenes this Friday and Saturday. But he told the Washington Post newspaper he may cancel that meeting. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Staying with Europe now, and the British Treasury and Bank of England will release a series of reports today sketching out the consequences of leaving the EU with or without a divorce deal. This comes as Prime Minister Theresa May and her team go around the country to convince people that her deal is the best for Britain.
British Prime Minister Theresa May faces the political fight of her life, trying to sell her Brexit deal to the UK before Parliament votes on whether to accept or reject the divorce package agreed with the EU. Support for the deal in Northern Ireland is up in the air, given uncertainties about whether the deal will continue to protect the Good Friday Peace Agreement post-Brexit.
The deal that we delivers not only delivers on the vote and protects people's jobs, but crucially recognises the specific circumstances of Northern Ireland and the importance of maintaining our commitment to the Belfast Good Friday Agreement and ensuring that people in Northern Ireland can continue to live their lives as they do today and that we have no hard border.
Meanwhile, Britain's Financial Minister Philip Hammond promised the deal would mitigate many of the economic costs of Brexit. Although he admitted the UK economy would downsize once it left the EU, Hammond warned that leaving without any deal at all would be catastrophic.
And what I can tell you is that it will show that a no-deal exit will have a much higher cost impact on the economy than the deal that the Prime Minister has negotiated. The UK economy will grow outside the European Union, and it will continue to grow because of its fundamental strengths. It's very, a strong high-tech industry, our very important services sector, our global companies. All of those things will keep the UK economy growing, but the economy will be in any of these scenarios a little bit smaller than it would have been if we'd remained inside the European Union.
The prospect of a disruptive Brexit, given the scale of opposition to May's plan in Parliament, remains a real possibility when British lawmakers vote on the deal on December the 11th.
And still ahead on the news tonight. Chan Oh-yan is sworn in as a lawmaker. Multimedia lights, art installations and a sound show at the Central Waterfront. And a 200-year-old Christmas tradition.
田藥妝有20幾款唔同嘅 mask 俾我揀，隨我心情，隨我需要自由去打，要靚就要 Day Day Mask 心田藥妝。
Welcome back to TVB News. Chan Hoi-yan, who won last Sunday's Legislative Council Kowloon West by-election, was sworn in as a lawmaker this morning. Haley Zhou has more details.
I will uphold the basic law of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China, bear allegiance to the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China.
With that, Chan Hoi-yan officially became a Legislative Council member. She was welcomed by her peers from the pro-establishment camp, Priscilla Long and Starry Lee, who rallied for Chan during her campaign. While an oath-taking may seem a formality in other parts of the world, not in this city. As the National People's Congress Standing Committee put it in its interpretation of Article 104 of the Basic Law in 2016, oaths should be taken accurately, completely, and solemnly without changing the wording. And if the oath is determined invalid, no arrangement shall be made for retaking the oath. It's not a light matter, as 6 pro-democracy lawmakers were disqualified last year due to their improper oath-takings. And the impact is even more significant. The disqualification have ultimately changed the balance of power in the legislature. Although Chan Hoi-yan has no party affiliation, she has not been shy in saying she shares the same vision as the pro-establishment camp. Chan took the seat in Kowloon West vacated by localist Lau Siu Lai, one of the disqualified lawmakers. Lau was forced out after taking her oath in slow motion over a period of almost 10 minutes. Speaking to reporters after her oath-taking today, the new lawmaker dismissed the suggestion that a free newspaper distributed on election day, which urged people to vote for her, served as a political advertisement.
For my Yan's campaign team, we didn't do any advertisement in any newspaper. So if anyone thinks this is inappropriate, they can have their follow-up action. I respect any follow-up action.
With Chan on his side, the pro-establishment camp has secured more than half of the seats in the geographical constituencies, in addition to the bloc's majority in the functional constituencies. It now can pass any bill, motion or amendment it proposes. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
The High Court today heard Leung Kwok Hong's bid to overturn a ruling in relation to his invalid LegCo oath. It's one that got him booted from the legislature. In court, the disqualified lawmaker's lawyer Martin Lee argued the National People's Congress Standing Committee has no right to make supplementary explanations to the basic law through an interpretation of the mini-constitution. 3 others whose oaths were deemed invalid gave up their appeals. By-elections have since taken place to fill their seats.
Local health authorities are waiting for Sanofi Aventis to explain how white particles ended up in its seasonal flu vaccines. The problem was detected in Taiwan, and 175,000 doses of the affected batch of vaccines were imported to Hong Kong. While some 75,000 doses have been distributed to the Department of Health, the Hospital Authority and healthcare facilities. There have been no adverse reports linked to these jabs, but to play safe, public hospitals and clinics have stopped using them.
On receiving the drugs, the Department of Health will not sort of double check it, because the drug company is supposed to be responsible to do this. All the healthcare professionals, before they actually inject the drug, they will check whether there is any irregularities, in the vaccination.
And starting tomorrow night, the Central Harbourfront will display multimedia lights, art installations and a sound show. Organised by the Hong Kong Tourism Board for the first time, the Hong Kong Pulse Light Festival will be the largest open-air light festival in Hong Kong. Highlights include extra designed by a team from France and a Hungarian Talking Heads. These festive decorations will be on display until the end of next February. Finally, one of the world's most famous Christmas songs was celebrated at an iconic church in New York as it approaches its 200th anniversary. Silent Night was performed at the Trinity Church by the Crow family singers from Austria. The song debuted in Austria in December of 1818. Organisers of this event say it's believed the song was first performed at the Trinity Church in 1839. And